Okay, I want to talk about some updates with what's happening in Newark, New Jersey. The end of last week, the mayor of Newark, Ras Baraka, was arrested by ICE and charged with federal trespass, I believe. The mayor and 3 members of Congress were at an ICE facility that is owned by a private contractor. It is a private corporation that is housing immigrants who have been detained by ICE. Those 3 members of Congress are Bonnie Watson Coleman, Rob Menendez, and LaMonica McIver. They were all there over concerns. In fact, I believe a lawsuit was filed last month over this issue. Concerns that this private facility has not allowed inspectors, including the fire marshal, to come in and inspect the site where they are housing migrants. Not housing, that's not the right word. Detaining, imprisoning for profit. So members of Congress said they were there to carry out their lawful oversight authority. They were there in their capacity as representatives from the Garden State to Congress. Representative Watson Coleman, in a statement, said that they were escorted into the facility by guards. And it was only after they left the facility that ICE agents began shoving the elected representatives. Now, before I read this next statement from DHS Assistant Secretary Tricia McLaughlin, I want to remind you how often this regime lies, and lies very badly. Tricia claims that members of Congress stormed into the facility. Representative Watson Coleman accused DHS of spreading false information about the Friday incident. She said, "This scuffle, during which an ICE agent physically shoved me, a U.S. Congresswoman, occurred after we had entered the Delaney Hall premises. We had entered the facility and had come back outside to speak to the mayor, and then ICE began shoving us." So after the mayor of Newark was arrested and then released and made his rounds on the media talking about what happened, Tricia McLaughlin from the Department of Homeland Security made her round of the media, and during a CNN interview on Saturday said, "There will likely be more arrests coming." Democrats have said that ICE and this regime are attempting to create an environment of intimidation, and that's exactly right. It would be unbelievably unprecedented to arrest sitting members of Congress for attempting to carry out their role as representatives for the state of New Jersey, their oversight capacity as members of Congress. I just want to remind you that the Trump regime said that Bonnie Watson Coleman stormed the ICE detention facility. She's 80 years old, but she stormed an ICE detention facility full of armed guards. By the way, Congresswoman McIver, who was also there, also went into the facility, said that they were doing a tour of the facility, and during the tour, ICE offered her a soda. All of the reps and the mayor of Newark said there were no issues while they were inside the facility. They were peacefully escorted in by ICE, who obviously let them do the tour, and then escorted back out, and it's only after they came outside that all of this nonsense went down. I don't really know what part of that constitutes storming an ICE facility. Every member of Congress should be absolutely outraged at this intimidation by the executive against the legislative. And we did see AOC absolutely being outraged.
And now what DHS is trying to say, again, they're using public intimidation because they know that they cannot come for us all. They know that they cannot come for us all. And recently what they said is that DHS is allegedly looking into arresting members of Congress who were showing up for their legal and constitutional obligation to conduct oversight. If anyone's breaking the law in this situation, it's not members of Congress, it's the Department of Homeland Security. It's people like Tom Homan and Secretary Kristi Noem. You lay a finger on someone, on Representative Bonnie Watson Coleman, on Representative, or any of the representatives that were there, you lay a finger on them, we are going to have a problem. Because the people who are breaking the law are the people who are not abiding by it. And it is enshrined in the law that members of Congress who show up to ICE and CBP facilities are required to be granted access, legally required to be granted access. And they legally cannot be inhibited from accessing these facilities to conduct their constitutional obligation to investigate and conduct oversight.
Right. So AOC is absolutely right. This is purely authoritarian intimidation tactics, right? They want to stop members of Congress from doing their jobs. And while this is unprecedented in the United States of America, it's not unprecedented under authoritarian regimes elsewhere. And, you know, authoritarians are going to do authoritarian shit. So of course, Donald Trump is going to try it here. And right, like obviously we expect AOC to push back vigorously against this. Obviously we expect her to be outraged and to make a very strong statement. But I don't understand why every single Democrat is not standing together doing a press conference condemning this vocally, vigorously. I could say once again how we need Democrats to be a united party of no, standing up and holding the line for the rule of law. And they're once again failing to do that. How much more impact would they have if they stood together as a unit? And I appreciate what AOC did, and she is by no means the only one. Fox News Sunday, Rep. Jared Moskowitz, who's a Democrat from Florida, said that DHS tried to set his colleagues up and that their version of events is, quote, a lie. In this interview, Moskowitz also said, if this continues to happen where members of Congress are going to be attacked, physically attacked by this administration. Remember, 80-year-old Congresswoman Watson Coleman said ICE agents shoved her. Moskowitz said this is going to have reverberations on whether the White House can function. I appreciate that, Congresswoman, but what do you mean? Where's the teeth behind that blustering? Honestly, same for you, AOC. What do you mean if you lay a finger on Rep. Bonnie Watson Coleman or any of the representatives that were there, we're going to have a problem? You already have a problem. This is a problem. So what are y'all going to do about it? I mean, she said in that clip that they couldn't come for all of them, and so they were just trying to pick off a few folks and intimidate them. So where is the tenacity and creativity from the Democrats? I would argue what they should do next, every single Democrat in Congress should show up to an ICE building in their state and exercise their oversight authority as a member of Congress and ask to be led into the facility and given a tour. There needs to be a big united act, a big pushback. What are they going to do? Arrest every Democrat in the House? Honestly, when I saw that these 3 members of the House went and did this with the mayor of Newark, I was like, this is the kind of action we need to see more of. We know in an authoritarian state that the state will be violent toward us, and they will be violent toward members of Congress who are attempting to do their job and make sure that democracy functions, make sure the rule of law is upheld. So those members of Congress and the mayor of Newark, they knew they were taking a risk. And we need big, bold moves right now, especially when it comes to the illegal things that ICE is doing. Any illegal thing this regime is doing, we need big, bold moves. And I actually told my husband on Friday night, good for those members of Congress for taking a risk, putting themselves out there. Look at all of the publicity this has brought, not only to what's happening with ICE, but the way that private contractors are involved. Private businesses are getting very, very wealthy off of our tax dollars and kidnapping migrants off of the streets and keeping them in facilities that apparently, according to the lawsuit, they're not allowing the fire marshal or other inspectors to inspect. This is the kind of good trouble that we need more members of Congress to get up to. I know Democrats in Congress don't give 2 shits about my opinion, but we cannot appease a fascist regime. When they bully you, when they try to intimidate you, the answer is never to back down. You give them an inch and they'll run all over you. I honestly think that what we need is all of the Democrats going and at the same time having a coordinated effort blasted all over social media where they all show up at their local ICE offices and demand a tour. They demand to be able to carry out their oversight capacity in person. What's Trump going to do? Arrest more than 200 elected officials? We are not so far into an authoritarian backslide that is going to fly. And honestly, I think most Republicans in Congress would freak the fuck out if that happened and would come to the aid of the Democrats. In fact, even over just these 3 Democrats, we already saw Republicans in the House pushing back. For example, Representative Michael McCaul, a Republican from Texas, on Sunday, he called the threats to arrest his Democratic colleagues, quote, very drastic. If they were just visiting a detention center, I've done that many times. He added if they were disrupting law enforcement, that would be a different question. And to be clear, Congresswoman Watson Coleman says, the notion that I or any of my colleagues body slammed armed federal officers is absurd. DHS is lying because they know their agents were out of line. So how do you think Democrats should respond to this bullying and intimidation? What do you think the right response is? Blustering on social media and in news interviews? Or is there more that should be done to push back against this overreach, against this intimidation, against threats made by the Trump regime against sitting members of Congress?